my mother-in-law. She lives in Alkmaar. And the reason I have her picture up here is I'm going to try really hard to remember to talk slowly and clearly, because when I get excited, I will go a little bit fast. So for your sake and for Oma, I'm going to try to pace this out a little bit. So I love Zen stories. I've read many, many Zen stories. And one of my favorites is the story of an old man. And one day, his son comes back with some wild horses that he has captured. And the villagers all go, "Oh, this is super, fantastic, you've got free horses." And the old man says, "Maybe." The next day, the son is trying to break the horses. And he falls off, and instead of breaking the horses, he breaks an arm and a hip and a rib. And the villagers say, "Oh, you were so unlucky. Those horses, they should have never come." And the old man says, "Maybe." So the next day, the army comes, and they take all the eligible young men off to go to war. And the villagers come, and they say, "You're so lucky you get to keep your son." And the old man says, "Maybe." So I've worked at a lot of places. And when I started working at LinkedIn, everybody said, "You're gonna go work at a resume site. Okay, good luck with that." And when I went to MySpace, people were like, "Wow, okay, that's a big challenge, but maybe." When I went to Zynga, everybody congratulated me. "You're working at the hottest company in the entire industry." So I have also learned to say, maybe. It's really hard to know how things are going to turn out. But I will say during this journey, I've been very, very, very lucky. I have learned amazing things, and I'm hoping that you will be willing to take this gift from me of some of the things I've learned kind of the hard way. This is one of the things I've learned. So I would love to tell you stories. I would love to tell you stories, and maybe at the cocktail hour we'll tell some stories. But in order, since this is recorded, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to tell a fictional story. Okay, so once upon a time, there was a little startup, and they had a dream. They thought, what if we brought really good tea to fine restaurants? Why are fine restaurants serving silly little tea bags, when there's really good tea? They care about espresso and they don't care about tea. One founder was named Hannah. She was first generation Chinese, and she really missed the tea that she had grown up with, that she had in her parents' house. The other founder was Jack. He was British, so you can imagine what he thought of the tea he was getting in America. And they met at Stanford, where they were both students. Jack was an HCI design student, and Hannah was an MBA. And they started talking about tea and how lousy it was, and they started their startup. And because they went to Stanford and could do math, they got funded. And they got enough money to try to do something. I'm just saying, speaking of hard lessons. So they had a wonderful time in those first 6 months. They got their office and they got to decorate it. They hired some engineers. They built a website that would put together restaurants and small tea producers, and they were having a great time. But after a while, they started to notice something. All the tea producers, the people who actually make it, were happy to sign up on the site. I mean, they were looking to sell some tea, right? But not that many restaurants were signing up to use the website. And then one day, Hannah went out and she sold the tea to a distributor. Now, distributors are those guys who drive up in the big trucks and they unload at the restaurant, and they have the Starbucks coffee and the big slabs of meat and the canned tomatoes and everything. And to be honest, they were sort of everything that Jack despised. However, Hannah had made quite a bit of money on this, and so he had to kind of live with this. And then she went out and did it again. And darn that crazy girl, she went out and made them more money. And so she had to have a little conversation with Jack. What if our customers aren't restaurants? What if our customers are actually these distributors. And they had a big argument about it, and they decided, hey, let's go see our angel investor. He's wise. He invested in Google. He invested in Facebook. He's been around the block. And so they went to talk to Jim Frost. So Jim said, hey, you know, guys, I hear what you're saying. This is a hard decision. So what I like to do when I'm deciding is I like to play let's pretend. So let's pretend you did go ahead and do this deal with distributors. What would it look like? How would things change? What's that world? Instead of we have to pick, we have to decide. Let's just act as if. And he told this story from Intel. And I wrote it out because I wanted to get it just right. So Andy Grove says, I looked out the window at the Ferris wheel. This was when Intel was being attacked by the Japanese cheap memory makers. I looked out the window at the Ferris wheel of the Great American Amusement Park, revolving in the distance, and then I turned back to Gordon and I asked, if we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO, what do you think he'd do? He would get us out of memory. Well, why don't we walk out the door, pretend we're the new CEO, and do it ourselves? I don't know why more people don't think of this. What if we just act as if it was happening? And so, you know, I find that you can say, well, let's pretend we're a B2B company. I love game design, so this is just like creating a little magic circle. What would we do? Well, we'd hire salespeople, right? Because you need salespeople to go out and make these big deals. We'd hire customer support, because if you've got a $100,000 deal, you want somebody to pick up the phone, right? You know, maybe we'll even hire a new CEO, you know, who knows? So after some conversation, they decided to focus on a new customer base. But Jim said, I got something else for you, also from Intel, something I learned from John Doerr. There's this thing that will help get your team really executing against this idea. They're called OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. So this is actually something that's spreading throughout the Silicon Valley. It's adopted at Google. Google took it on when they were 1 year old. And you can go online and you can find the talks where they say, yes, this is how we got to grow so quickly. Zynga did it, General Assembly's doing it, LinkedIn did it. OKRs are really powerful. So you say, what is this buzzword that you are giving me? Well, they're objectives and key results. The objective is the dream. The KR is the success criteria. How do we know we've actually made this dream? OKRs are qualitative. Objectives are qualitative. KRs are quantitative. So an example might be, I have this objective, successfully launch a blogging platform. Well, what does successful mean? I mean, if you're a designer, maybe successful means it's beautiful and it looks better than Blogger. Maybe if you're an engineer, it means 98% uptime. You have to define the words with real numbers. 10 influencers signed up. That's a good thing to do in a quarter. 1,500 organic signups in 1 week. That means the word of mouth is good. 99% uptime. Those are 3 pretty good KRs. OKRs are time-bound, they're cascading, and they're hard but not impossible. You should expect to get 2 out of 3. At Google, they say OKRs remind us to always be shooting for the moon. So if the company said, these are our OKRs, engineering might say, we're going to need 2 back-end hires, and we need load speed to be under 2 seconds. While design might say, we want fewer than 5 minor errors, an NPS of 60, an executive sign-off by 10.5. They're measurable, they're real, they're actually numbers. You can't just say it's good. You have to say how good, and you have to say how you know how good it is. So some time passes, they take the OKRs back, and guess what? A quarter later, the team has not actually hit any of their OKRs. You know, it's okay to hit 2 out of 3, but none? What happened? And by the way, for you Europeans, there's a fine word called whiffed, which is when you try to hit a ball and go right past it. This team is whiffed, and they do not look happy about it. So they go to Jim Frost, and he says, hey, you know what? I want you to meet somebody. I'm going to introduce you to your next CTO. And they see Raphael. And at first they're like, ooh, dude, he looks kind of mean and tough. And then they notice his T-shirt. Okay, nerds like us, we're okay now, we're safe. But he says, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Well, OKRs are pretty simple. You got an objective, you got key results. What could you be doing wrong? You have to have a cadence. And by that I mean, you have to have regular check-ins. You can't just wish and then show up and hope Santa Claus came by. You have to constantly check in with your team. Are we really doing the things that we promised each other that we would do? So Mondays are for promises, and Fridays are for winners. This is a system that we used at Zynga, and I have brought this to a lot of the startups I advise, and it works extraordinarily well. So as you can see, we have 3 priorities. This is the priority I, the designer, I, the head of marketing, I, the engineer, is making to the team. It's a little like Scrum, you know, when you get in stand-up and you say, what did you do yesterday and what are you doing tomorrow? I'm saying, I'm going to make these 3 big things happen. And I don't know if you've ever been in one of those status meetings where people are like going on and on and on, and I called this guy and I did that. It's not about saying every single little thing you did. It's about focusing on the big things. Second, we have the overview of the next month. And this is just a heads up. Guess what, guys? You know, we're going to be doing these things. Does anybody know anybody at this company we want to do a deal with? Does anybody, are you aware we're going to need a marketing plan? Just a way of keeping everybody, you know, in the loop. That's tight. Then we have the OKR confidence level. And this is really important. In order to make sure OKRs are a stretch goal, we put them 5 out of 10. Then every week we change the number. And then we talk about it. So if I move that KR down to 3, people are going to go, whoa, 3, where did that come from? What happened? You know, oh, well, it turns out that they pulled out of the deal, or the users actually hate everything we're doing, or MPS is tanking when we do this thing that we thought were going to make us money. I mean, you have the good conversations, and that brings the whole team to start learning, and you start to get to know what's possible. I don't know how many of you guys are asked to make estimates, but the first time you tried to estimate how long something was going to take, right, a home page maybe, you probably messed it up. You said, I could do that in 2 days, or it's going to take me 2 months. The practice of guessing what your potential is a fantastic practice to get used to. And then the last one, I think, is also important, because when we're pushing everybody to grow, we can mess up the stuff that's already going well. We can, I'm trying not to cuss really strongly, and I'm doing well. So you want to pay attention. Are you driving your team to the ground? Are you pushing them too hard? Are you writing lousy code? Is your code health going to heck? Are you upsetting your customers because you're focused too much on revenue? You pick 1 or 2 health metrics and you track them. And so while you're pushing, you're also protecting. Protect what matters. And I love this system. It's really simple. It's clear. It takes maybe 10 minutes, unless you have a fight in your team meeting to discuss. And it's been interesting because I know at least 2 different design companies that are adopting it. And I was kind of like, you can do that? I didn't know design companies could work efficiently on metrics. Okay, I'm sorry. That's a little bit of an assumption. But I'm very excited to see this happening. So it's all about dedication. You're dedicating yourself to your goals, committing to those, and you're dedicating yourself to your team. As well, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm a big fan of a weekly status email sent to everybody. Complete transparency. That's how it works in Google. That's how it works in Zynga. Well, you don't send it to everybody because you now have 10,000 people, but your entire team. And it just lists the OKRs and what the confidence level is, what those priorities were, what happened last week, risks and blockers. And it's about creating a collective body of knowledge. Then Fridays are for wins and wine, or wins and beer. It's all about celebrating. Engineering should be demoing whatever they built that week. I'm going to bet that at least some of you already do this. Your engineers come up and they show the code they wrote. How many of you do design demos, though, when you've seen the engineer's demo? Why shouldn't you show your latest ideas, your directions, your explorations? I mean, you made progress, too. Why doesn't sales and biz dev share their wins? I finally got a call with that really important guy, you know. I finally closed that sale I've been working on for 4 weeks. And, you know, I really think this is important. Now, I understand that Maybe alcohol's not always appropriate, so you could go with cake. Cake is nice. But I think it's a little bit about, coming together collaboratively, collectively, celebrating and eating something nice or drinking something nice. Everybody needs bragging time. Everybody deserves it. Even customer service should get up there and say, hey, there was a customer and she cried for 30 minutes on the phone and then I fixed it, Everybody deserves to stand in front of the group and brag. It motivates the team to have something to share. You start looking for the win. What am I going to show up on Friday with? It makes you feel like you're part of something special. Oh my God, all these people around me are doing these incredible things. I love being in this company. And it shows progress, and you need to show progress. So Hannah goes back to the team, and she says, you didn't make your OKRs. And the team is, well, I don't think we're marketing it right. We had some problems with the performance of the site. We had to deal with wrong orders. We didn't hire a second salesperson. This is bad because excuses and blames never fix anything. Fixing things fixes things. And so, clever lady that she is, she says it's okay. It's actually going to take us a couple quarters to get our OKRs right. Every group I've ever worked with either slam dunks their OKRs and didn't push themselves far enough or blows it completely because they're crazy dreamers. What's important is that you learn and you try again and you start to find out how awesome you and your team can actually be. So a little more time passes. They've set up new OKRs. They've set up their everything. They may have made 1 or 2 OKRs. They may have made a little bit of money. They might have gotten to the next level. They may have leveled up. They were able to execute. They were able to execute together, and they were able to have an epic win. I love OKRs because they put together my favorite 2 things. They put together real analytics and metrics, but also the thing that gets us out of bed in the morning, inspiration, dreams, trying harder, reaching farther. I love them so much. You might ask yourself, okay, we saw it with a startup. We hear it works with the big companies. But what else can you do with it? This is what I did with it. I decided to change my life with OKRs. I set myself an objective. I decided after Zynga, I was tired. I was close to having an ulcer. I was not seeing my daughter grow up. I feel Irene there. And I thought, I got to change something. So I set myself an objective. I said, my big objective, my mission statement, if you want to think of mission statements, was to optimize for joy. I wanted to have joy in my life. So how is it going to change? Well, for 1 quarter, all I did was focus on being financially stable because I didn't want to be full of joy and very broke. That's short-term joy. I wanted long-term joy. While preserving my health and doing work I like to do. It's pretty groovy, right? But it's only hippie talk until you get some metrics behind it. Just saying. So I'm not going to say how much I need to make every month, because then you'll try to rent my house out from under me from my landlord. But I had a certain goal of how much I wanted to make over the next 3 months, the quarter, while doing work that I would do for free. That was really important to me. I wanted to do things I would do for giggles. I set another KR, have a manageable budget to predict expenses. I was raised by hippies. Doing a budget seemed sort of unnatural and strange, but it seemed like a good part of the plan. And this was the big one. When I was at Zynga, I was taking Prilosec every day and waking up every 2 hours during the night to take Tums. Some days I could barely get out of bed because my back hurt so much. I've had back surgery when I was at LinkedIn. It's not about Zynga or LinkedIn. It's just this tech life takes a pound of flesh out of us if we let it. So I said to myself, this is the KR I really want to hit. I don't want to have acid reflux anymore. I don't want to have back pain anymore. I'm going to commit to that metric. And I needed my weekly check-in, so I found someone I could send this to. And I would say, here's my OKRs, here's my confidence level, I'm adjusting it. Did I do the things I said I would do last week? Here's what I plan to do next week. And I started noticing all the little things that held me back. And at the end of the year, I've been doing this for a full year, I sat down with my coach and we were actually able to discover all my bad habits, all the things I accidentally did that were getting in the way of me becoming as joyful as I wish to be. And it was an invaluable amount of learning. And I think sometimes we say you can't measure good design or we can't measure beauty. I would like you to question that, because if I can measure my joy, you might be able to find a number that helps you track when you're being awesome and when you're missing out on your potential. So we all have dreams. We all have things we want to do. Some of us want to be a pirate. I'll back that. But it doesn't happen without a plan. It doesn't happen without learning. And I hope that you, like me, will find that OKRs can help you meet both your company's dreams and your own. So thanks, Jake and Lizu, for being Jack and Hannah. Thank you guys so much. And thank you. And we have plenty of time for questions.